The year was 2847, and the council chamber felt cold despite the thousands of beings gathered inside. Ambassador Daniel Harper sat in the human delegation section and watched the vote counter climb higher and higher. His face showed nothing, but inside his chest his heart beat faster than usual. Beside him, Commander Lisa Bennett kept her hands folded on the table, and Dr. Paul Martinez stared straight ahead at the massive display, showing the vote totals. The proposition was simple, enough for anyone to understand. Humanity would be restricted to exactly 73 colony worlds and no more. Every human military vessel had to be destroyed within 5 standard years. Earth's defensive systems had to be opened to council inspectors whenever they wanted to look. The vote numbers kept rising, and Daniel knew what was coming. He had known for weeks that this moment would arrive. When the final count appeared on the screens, the chamber fell silent for just a moment. 847 species voted yes. Only 2 abstained. The Viridian Collective and the small aquatic Maresh chose not to vote. But nobody voted to support humanity. Not a single species stood with them. Daniel heard Lisa take a slow breath beside him, and Paul's jaw tightened, but neither of them moved. Daniel remembered the first contact 60 years ago when he was just a boy. His grandfather had told him stories about the day the Viridian ships appeared over Earth. Everyone thought it was the beginning of something wonderful. Humanity would join a vast galactic community. They would learn from thousands of advanced species. They would have friends among the stars. For the first few years, it seemed like those dreams might come true, but humans were different from the other species. They learned too fast. They asked too many questions. They refused to simply accept the way things had always been done. Human engineers looked at council technology and found ways to improve it. Human scientists proposed theories that made the council academics uncomfortable. Human diplomats kept pushing for changes to laws that had existed for thousands of years. The other species started to worry. The Thraxians were the first to complain loudly. Their insectoid ambassadors clicked and buzzed about how humans were dangerous. The gaseous Neltorians agreed, and their representatives glowed angry reds in the council sessions. The reptilian Korthax wanted humans restricted. Too creative, they said. Too unpredictable. Too willing to break the rules. More and more species joined the chorus until humanity found itself alone. Now the vote was done, and Daniel stood slowly. Lisa and Paul stood with him. The 3 of them walked down from their seats toward the center of the massive chamber. Thousands of alien eyes watched them. The chamber was so large that it took almost a full minute to reach the speaking platform. Daniel's footsteps echoed in the silence. When he finally stopped at the center, he looked up at High Chancellor Vrim. Vrim was a crystalline being who stood 3 times as tall as any human. His body reflected the light in strange patterns, and his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. He looked down at the 3 humans and waited. Daniel pulled a small data crystal from his pocket. The crystal was no bigger than his thumb, but it contained everything he needed to say. The United Terran government has heard the council's decision, Daniel said, and his voice carried through the chamber's speakers to every corner. We reject it entirely. The chamber erupted. Clicking and hissing and buzzing filled the air. The Thraxians sounded like angry machinery. The Neltorians pulsed bright orange and red. Even some of the quieter species made sounds of shock. Vrim raised one crystalline arm, and slowly the noise faded. You cannot reject a council majority vote, Vrim said, and his voice was hard as stone. You are bound by the galactic compact that your species signed. You agreed to follow council law. Daniel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. He held up the data crystal. Article 47. Section 12 of that compact, he said. Any member species may withdraw from the council with 6 months' notice, provided they give up all council-granted territories and technology. The chamber went silent again. Vrim's crystalline body seemed to dim slightly. You would leave, he said. And for the first time, Daniel heard uncertainty in the Chancellor's voice. Where would you go? The council controls all major trade routes. The council holds all the resource-rich systems. You would doom your species to isolation and poverty and eventual extinction. Perhaps, Daniel said quietly, but we would rather be isolated than enslaved. He placed the data crystal on the floor of the chamber. It activated immediately and projected a message in every council language. The message was simple and clear. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will leave all shared stations and facilities within 60 days. We want nothing from you. We ask nothing from you. Leave us alone and we will leave you alone. Daniel turned and walked back toward the exit. Lisa and Paul followed him. Behind them, the chamber erupted again, but this time with celebration. The Thraxians clicked their approval. The Korthax hissed with satisfaction. Dozens of species made sounds of relief and happiness. The troublesome humans were leaving. The problem was solving itself. Finally, the council could return to normal. But not everyone celebrated. Ambassador Lyran of the Viridian Collective sat in his delegation's section and watched the humans leave. He was old even by Viridian standards, and he had studied Earth's history carefully. He knew about their wars. He knew about their revolutions. He knew what humans did when someone tried to cage them. They didn't break. They didn't beg. They walked away and they built something new, and they came back stronger. Lyran looked around at the celebrating species and felt something cold settle in his chest. These fools had no idea what they had just done. They thought they were removing a problem. They thought they were protecting themselves. But Lyran knew better. They had just made an enemy of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not dangerous because humans were cruel or violent. Dangerous because humans never gave up. Dangerous because humans learned from everything. Dangerous because when you cornered a human, they didn't surrender. The three humans reached the chamber doors, and Daniel paused for just a moment. He looked back at the celebrating crowd. He saw Vrim standing at the center looking uncertain. He saw the Thraxians clicking happily. He saw hundreds of species who thought they had won. Daniel's face remained calm, but Lisa saw his hands curl into fists for just a second before he relaxed them. Then the doors closed behind them and they were gone. Outside the chamber, the human delegation boarded their shuttle. The Aurora's Dream waited for them in orbit. It was a beautiful ship, sleek and powerful, and built with human engineering. Within hours, they would leave the station. Within days, they would be gone from council space entirely. Daniel sat in the shuttle and looked out at the massive station. He had spent 5 years here. 5 years trying to make the council understand. 5 years wasted. Commander Bennett sat across from him. "What now?" she asked. Daniel looked at her and then at Paul. "Now we go home," he said. "Now we tell our people what happened. Now we prepare." "For what?" Paul asked. Daniel looked back out the window at the station growing smaller behind them. "For the day they realize their mistake," he said quietly. "For the day they come looking for us and find out what humanity became, without them holding us back." The next 60 days felt like a strange dream to everyone watching. Human embassies across council space began shutting down one by one. Human traders recalled every single ship to human territory. Human scientists packed up years of research and deleted their contributions from shared databases. The council expected angry messages. They expected threats. They expected humans to beg for another chance. Instead, they got polite professional emails and transfer confirmations and nothing else. Station Commander Zorak stood in the control center of Kelvanis Station and watched the human section empty out. He was Korthax, and his reptilian face showed satisfaction. The humans were finally leaving. Captain Helen Stone commanded the human military group on the station, and Zorak had never liked her. She was too confident, too comfortable with giving orders. Now she was packing up and leaving like everyone else. Zorak found her in the human quarters 3 days before the deadline. Leaving so soon, he asked, and couldn't keep the happiness out of his voice. Having second thoughts, Helen looked at him and smiled, but her eyes stayed cold. "No second thoughts, Commander," she said. "We have a long journey ahead. We want to get started." Zorak hissed softly. "Where will you go?" he asked. "Your colonies are scattered. Many barely have enough resources to survive. We'll manage," Helen said. She turned back to supervising her people. They moved with perfect efficiency. Every box labeled. Every system checked. Every door locked behind them. Zorak watched them work and felt slightly uneasy. When the last human transport finally undocked, Zorak went to inspect the section they had left behind. What he found confused him. The life support systems were running better than before, 20% more efficient according to the readings. The water recycling systems worked smoother than they had in years. The humans had fixed things on their way out. Why, his junior officer asked, why would they improve our systems when we just kicked them out? Zorak had no answer. It made no sense. But then humans rarely made sense to him. Similar scenes happened across council space. On the Viridian homeworld, Professor Gregory Hayes closed down his laboratory. He had been working with Viridian scientists on quantum communication for 3 years. They were so close to a breakthrough. His colleague Linara came to say goodbye and she looked heartbroken. "Stay," she said. "Please stay. We can finish this work together. We're so close." Gregory shook his head sadly. "I can't," he said. "My government made its decision. I have to respect that. I wish things were different." "Will we see each other again?" Linara asked. "Maybe someday," Gregory said, but he didn't sound like he believed it. He packed his research carefully and left. Linara stood in the empty lab and cried. 3 years of work. 3 years of friendship. Gone because the council was afraid. Throughout known space, human facilities went dark. Trade agreements were canceled. Joint military exercises stopped. Cultural exchange programs ended. The council had existed for thousands of years, and in all that time, no species had ever completely withdrawn. It felt wrong somehow, like a piece of the galaxy had been cut away. But most council members celebrated. The problem was solved. On Earth, President Karen Mitchell stood before cameras and addressed her people. Billions watched as she spoke. "We knew this day might come," she said. "We prepared for it. Yes, the next few years will be difficult. Yes, we'll have to work harder than before, but we will survive. We will thrive. We will do it our way on our terms. Nobody will tell us how to live. Nobody will limit our dreams. We are free." Behind closed doors, the real work began. The Terran government activated something called Protocol Sanctuary. It was a plan that had been prepared years ago just in case. Every human colony received new orders. Build faster. Dig deeper. Grow stronger. Supply chains were reorganized to remove every single council connection. Trade routes were mapped that avoided all council space. Military vessels were moved to secret locations. Admiral Stephen Cole commanded the largest secret shipyard in the outer belt. It was hidden inside a massive asteroid, and no council sensors could detect it. He walked through the facility and looked at the ships being built. They were beautiful. Sleek and deadly and more advanced than anything the council had. "The council thinks we're weak," he told his officers. "They think isolation will break us. They're about to learn why you don't corner a human." The last human to leave council space was Ambassador Daniel Harper. The Aurora's Dream approached the final checkpoint at the border. A young Viridian officer was on duty, and he opened a communication channel. "Ambassador," he said, "I must ask, what will humanity do now?" Daniel thought about the question carefully. "We're going to disappear for a while," he said. "Build our strength. Chart our own course. The galaxy is big. There's room for us somewhere." The Viridian officer hesitated. "And if the council needs you," he asked. "If there's a crisis?" Daniel's expression hardened. "Then the council should have thought of that before they tried to cage us," he said. He cut the transmission. The Aurora's Dream engaged its faster-than-light drive and jumped. In seconds, it was gone. Humanity had left the building. Back on Earth, the real transformation began. Human engineers started working on projects that would have made the council nervous. New weapons. New shields. New drives that could push ships faster than ever before. Human scientists explored theories that the council had forbidden. Human leaders made plans for a future without anyone telling them what to do. It felt strange at first, lonely, but also liberating. Lisa Bennett took command of a new training program for the Colonial Defense Forces. She pushed her people hard, harder than the council would have allowed. They ran drills until they could coordinate perfectly. They studied tactics that the council had never seen. They learned to think creatively about every problem. "We don't have the numbers the council has," Lisa told them, "so we have to be better, smarter, faster, more adaptable." Dr. Paul Martinez led the science division. He gathered the brightest minds humanity had and gave them one simple instruction. Innovate. Don't worry about council regulations. Don't worry about what's considered proper or safe. Find the boundaries and push past them. "We're alone now," he said. "That means we can take risks. We can try things others won't. We can be bold." The months passed and humanity worked. They built new colonies on worlds the council had deemed worthless. They found resources in places the council had overlooked. They developed technologies the council had thought impossible. And slowly, quietly, without anyone watching, they became something new, something stronger, something the council would never have allowed them to become. In the council chambers, life returned to normal. High Chancellor Vrim presided over debates about trade regulations and border disputes. The Thraxians and Korthax stopped complaining about humans. The Neltorians focused on their own research. Everything seemed peaceful. Everything seemed right. But Ambassador Lyran couldn't shake his unease. He kept thinking about the humans, wondering what they were doing, wondering if the council had made a terrible mistake. He tried to raise his concerns, but nobody wanted to listen. The human problem was solved. Why worry about it? Lyran didn't push too hard. He knew how the council worked. They didn't like being told they were wrong. So he stayed quiet and watched and waited. Somewhere out there beyond council space, humanity was doing something. He just hoped the council wouldn't regret finding out what. 5 years passed and the Galactic Council congratulated itself. The human problem was gone. Trade flowed smoothly through council space. Protocols were followed perfectly. Order was maintained. High Chancellor Vrim gave speeches about how the council had protected itself from chaos. The Thraxians clicked approvingly. The Korthax hissed their satisfaction. Everything seemed better. But slowly, quietly, cracks began to show. The Thraxian hive decided to expand into 3 systems that humans had once claimed. Their ships arrived expecting rich mining opportunities. What they found disappointed them. The easily accessible resources were gone. The humans had taken what they needed, but they had left detailed surveys showing what remained. The problem was that the remaining resources were deep underground or locked in difficult formations. The Thraxians lacked human creativity. Their mining techniques couldn't adapt. After 6 months, they gave up. High Chancellor Vrim dismissed the concern when the Thraxians complained. "You simply lack adaptability," he said. "This is not a human-specific problem. You need better engineers." But it was a human-specific problem. Humans had a way of making difficult things look easy. They saw solutions where others saw only obstacles. Without them, certain tasks became much harder. The Korthax Dominion tried to establish new trade routes through the Outer Rim. These were dangerous paths through unstable space that humans had maintained for decades. The Korthax thought they could do the same. They sent 3 large convoys loaded with valuable cargo. The first convoy lost 2 ships to a gravitational anomaly. The second convoy lost 4 ships to unexpected radiation bursts. The third convoy never arrived at all. After a year, the Korthax gave up on those routes. The Neltorian collective faced a different problem. Their medical research had always been strong, but lately it seemed to stall. They noticed the change slowly at first. Projects that should have taken months stretched into years. Problems that should have been solvable remained mysteries. Dr. Kalen was a senior Neltorian researcher, and he understood why. "We relied on human creativity," he told the medical council. "They approached problems differently. They tried things we would never consider." Then the Velar plague appeared. It was a disease that attacked the nervous systems of dozens of species. The Neltorians tried everything they knew. They created models. They ran simulations. They tested thousands of compounds. Nothing worked. Every treatment failed. Every model proved wrong. The plague spread from 1 world to 5, then to 10, then to 17. Dr. Kalen pleaded with the medical council. "We need to reach out to the humans," he said. "They would have found an unconventional approach by now. We will solve it ourselves," came the official response. "We are the Galactic Council. We do not need humans." But they didn't solve it. Not quickly enough. The plague raged for 14 months before the Neltorians developed a partial treatment. It wasn't even a cure, just something that slowed the disease down. 40 million beings died. Dr. Kalen wrote a report estimating that human help would have stopped the plague in 3 months. Nobody wanted to read his report. On the Viridian homeworld, innovation slowed dramatically. The Viridians were brilliant scientists. They understood complex theories. They could solve difficult equations. But they realized too late how much human lateral thinking had accelerated their progress. Professor Linara published a paper titled "The Cost of Conformity." In it, she detailed how human collaboration had pushed Viridian science forward, how human questions had opened new fields of study, how human boldness had inspired Viridian researchers to take risks. The academic council censured her for the paper. They called it inappropriate. They said she was glorifying a species that had rejected the council. But the paper spread anyway. Young Viridian scientists read it secretly. They remembered the human researchers who had worked among them. They missed the excitement those humans had brought, the sense that anything was possible, that no question was too strange to ask. In the council chambers, Ambassador Lyran finally spoke up. "We made a mistake," he said during a session. "Humanity contributed more than we realized. their economic activity, their scientific insights, their military support. We didn't understand how much we depended on them until they were gone. High Chancellor Vrim looked at him coldly. They were one species among thousands, he said. Their absence is merely an adjustment period. An adjustment that cost billions in lost trade, Lyran countered. An adjustment that cost millions of lives in the plague. An adjustment that has slowed progress across multiple fields. Watch your tone, Ambassador Vrim said, and his crystalline body glowed with warning. Lyran fell silent, but his concern only grew. He saw the problems everywhere. Small inefficiencies adding up. Innovation slowing. The Council becoming more rigid and less adaptable. 8 years after humanity's departure, something strange happened. A deep space monitoring station on the edge of Council territory detected unusual energy signatures. They came from the direction of human space. The readings were brief, strange patterns that didn't match any known technology. Then they vanished. The station commander sent a report to Council Command. Should we investigate, he asked? Negative, came the response. Human space is off limits per the separation agreement. Whatever they are doing is no longer our concern. The commander filed the report in the database. Nobody looked at it again. Nobody wondered what those energy readings meant. Nobody considered that maybe they should be concerned. The report gathered digital dust while in the darkness of space, humanity continued building something the Council couldn't imagine. More years passed and the Council settled into its new normal. Trade was less efficient but still functional. Research progressed more slowly but still progressed. Military readiness declined slightly but seemed adequate. The Council had existed for thousands of years before humans arrived. It would continue for thousands more. That was what everyone believed. That was what they told themselves. The human absence was temporary discomfort, nothing more. But Ambassador Lyran couldn't forget. He kept files on everything related to humanity. He tracked the small problems that kept appearing. The trade routes that became too dangerous. The research projects that stalled. The innovative solutions that nobody could provide anymore. He built a picture of what the Council had lost. It was significant. More significant than anyone wanted to admit. Sometimes late at night he would look at star maps showing human territory. It was a small region compared to Council space. Just 73 colony worlds and Earth itself. Not much, really. But Lyran remembered human history. He remembered how fast they had grown. He remembered their determination. He wondered what they had built in 12 years of isolation. He wondered if anyone would ever find out. In the Council chambers, discussions continued about mundane matters. Border disputes between minor species, trade regulations for agricultural products, maintenance schedules for shared stations. Everything was orderly. Everything was proper. Everything followed the rules that had existed for millennia. The Council was comfortable. The Council was safe. The Council was completely unprepared for what was coming. On the edges of known space, something stirred. Something ancient and hungry. Something that had been sleeping in the darkness beyond the galactic rim. It began to wake. It began to move. It began to hunt. And the Galactic Council that had cast humanity aside was about to learn that sometimes the greatest danger comes from being too comfortable, from believing you are safe, from forgetting that the galaxy is vast and dark and full of things that don't care about your rules. 12 years after humanity walked away, the galaxy faced its worst nightmare. They came from beyond the galactic rim where nothing was supposed to exist. They called themselves the Devourers, though the translation was imperfect. Their ships were massive things that looked half machine and half alive. They consumed everything in their path. Planets were stripped to bare rock. Stars were drained of energy. Entire civilizations vanished in days. The Zinthrak were the first to die. They were a peaceful species who had never developed serious weapons. Their homeworld had beautiful cities and vast libraries and millions of years of culture. The Devourers arrived without warning. The Council received one final transmission. Screams and static and the image of organic vessels blocking out the sun. Then nothing. The Zinthrak were gone. Billions of them. Erased from existence. High Chancellor Vrim activated the mutual defense protocols. Within days, thousands of ships gathered from across Council space. Every species sent their best warships. The Thraxians brought their hive fleets. The Korthax deployed their dreadnoughts. The Neltorians contributed their medical ships. It was the largest military force the Council had ever assembled. Surely it would be enough. Admiral Grath took command. He was Korthax and had fought in dozens of conflicts over his long life. He reviewed the tactical data and felt something he had never felt before. Real fear. These devourers were unlike anything in recorded history. They adapted to every weapon. Energy beams that should have destroyed them were absorbed and converted to power. Kinetic weapons were caught and repurposed. They learned from every engagement. The first major battle lasted 6 hours. The Council lost 40 ships. The Devourers lost none. The second battle was worse. The Council lost over 100 ships. The Devourers adapted even faster. By the third battle, Admiral Grath knew they were in serious trouble. His forces were being destroyed. The Devourers were consuming system after system. 7 systems fell in 3 weeks. The Council was losing. In the emergency council session, the arguments grew heated. The Thraxians wanted to throw more ships at the problem. The Neltorians suggested biological weapons. The smaller species were panicking. Admiral Grath stood before them all and said what nobody wanted to hear. "We need creative tactical thinking," he said. "We need unconventional strategies. We need someone who thinks differently than we do." He stopped himself. "Say it," Ambassador Lyran urged from his seat. Grath looked around the chamber. "We need humans," he said. The chamber exploded. The Thraxians clicked furiously in denial. "We will not beg those primitives," they said. "We are the Council. We have billions of warriors. And the Devourers have consumed 7 systems in 3 weeks," Lyran shot back. "Pride is a luxury we cannot afford." High Chancellor Vrim made the decision. "Ambassador Lyran, you will lead a delegation to human space," he said. "Negotiate whatever price they demand." Lyran felt the weight of billions of lives settle on his shoulders. "I will need full authority to make agreements," he said. "You have it," Vrim replied. Lyran left immediately. He knew time was running out. Every day more worlds fell. Every day more beings died. 3 days later, the diplomatic vessel Olive Branch crossed into human territory. Lyran expected to find struggling colonies and desperate people. What he found shocked him. Space stations gleamed with advanced technology. Orbital installations of unknown design filled the system. The ships that approached them were beautiful and deadly, far more advanced than anything in Council space. Commander Jake Foster hailed them. "State your business," he said. "We bring a message from the Galactic Council," Lyran transmitted. "We request an audience with your government regarding an urgent matter." There was a long pause. Lyran watched human ships move around them with perfect coordination. Construction drones worked on massive structures. Everything spoke of confidence and strength. Finally, Foster responded. "You may proceed to Earth. A shuttle will escort you. Do not deviate from the designated course." The journey to Earth took 2 days. Lyran couldn't stop staring. Mars was being terraformed on a massive scale. Venus had floating cities in its clouds. The asteroid belt was filled with mining operations and factories. And the ships. Thousands of advanced warships unlike anything the Council possessed. "What have they been building?" one of his aides whispered. Lyran had no answer, but he was beginning to understand the terrible mistake the Council had made. On Earth, they met President Nathan Brooks in a simple room overlooking a forest. No grand halls. No intimidating architecture. Just a quiet space that somehow felt more powerful than any throne room. Ambassador Lyran Brooks said warmly, "I'm told you bring news from the Council." Lyran took a breath. "Mr. President, the galaxy faces an existential threat. An enemy called the Devourers is consuming systems. The Council cannot stop them." "We need help. You need our help," Brooks said gently. "The same Council that tried to disarm us. The same Council that celebrated when we left." "Yes," Lyran said. "We were wrong. I was wrong. I voted for that proposition. I thought humanity was dangerous and unpredictable. I see now that those qualities are not weaknesses. They are strengths. They are exactly what we need." Brooks regarded him for a long moment. "You understand that humanity has no obligation to help you," he said. "I do," Lyran replied. "And you understand that if we do help, it will cost the Council dearly." "Name your price," Lyran said. He was prepared for demands of territory or resources or tribute. What Brooks showed him was far more radical. "This is a treaty I've had prepared for 6 years," Brooks said as he pulled up a holographic display. "Just in case this day came. Read it carefully." Lyran read with growing astonishment. Humanity demanded no territory, no resources, no reparations. Instead, they demanded fundamental changes to the Council itself. A true federation of equals. Absolute sovereignty for all species. No more majority rule that could oppress minorities. A Bill of Rights for all sapient beings. You want to dismantle the Council's power structure, Lyran said. No, Brooks corrected. We want to dismantle the Council's ability to oppress its members. We want to transform it into something actually worth belonging to. Many species will refuse these terms, Lyran said. That's their choice, Brooks replied. But we won't fight and die for a system that treats people as subjects to be controlled. If the Council rejects this treaty, Lyran asked. Then we defend our own space and leave you to your fate, Brooks said. We'll mourn the innocent lives lost, but we won't compromise our principles to save a corrupt system. Lyran thought of his homeworld, of the friends he had made among humans years ago, of the millions dying while the Council debated. I need to consult with the High Chancellor, he said. The transmission to the Council was tense. High Chancellor Vrim appeared in holographic form and his crystalline body pulsed with agitation. These terms are unacceptable, he said after reviewing the treaty. The humans want to destroy everything we built. They want to save everything we built, Lyran argued, by making it worth saving. The Thraxian Hive will never agree, Vrim said. The Korthax will see this as weakness. Then let them refuse, Lyran said, and watch their worlds be consumed. High Chancellor, I have seen what humanity accomplished in 12 years. Their technology has leaped forward. Their ships are magnificent. Their people are united and strong. Everything we feared they might become, they have become. Without oppressing anyone. Without conquering anyone. They did it by being free. Vrim was silent for a long time. If we accept this treaty, everything changes, he finally said. Everything must change, Lyran said firmly. The old way led us here to the brink of extinction, begging the species we cast out to save us. Another long pause stretched across space. I will put it to a vote, Vrim finally said. No, Lyran said, and his voice was steel. No more votes on the rights of sapient beings. Either we accept humanity's terms or we face the devourers alone. Choose. It was the first time in his long life that Lyran had defied a High Chancellor. It felt terrifying and liberating. Vrim's crystalline form shifted through colors reflecting his inner turmoil. The silence stretched for what felt like forever. Finally, his body settled into a steady blue. We accept, he said. The treaty was signed 3 days later aboard the Olive Branch with President Brooks and High Chancellor Vrim, both present. Brooks authorized immediate military intervention. Admiral Stephen Cole led a fleet of 200 human warships toward the Council's defensive line. What happened next became legend across the galaxy. The human ships engaged the Devourers with tactics nobody had ever seen. Instead of orderly formations, they used chaos. Instead of predictable patterns, they moved like water. Instead of standard weapons, they deployed solutions cobbled together from seemingly incompatible technologies. They coordinated with Council forces in ways that amplified both fleets. Where Council ships had fought alone, humans taught them to fight together. Captain Olivia Grant commanded the destroyer Swift Justice. She led a daring assault on a Devourer command node using something she called crossing the T. It was an ancient human naval tactic modified for three-dimensional space. The Devourers had never encountered anything like it. Their adaptive systems couldn't predict what the humans would do next because the humans kept inventing new approaches mid-battle. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper was a young engineer who had grown up during humanity's isolation. He jury-rigged a quantum disruption field using human technology and captured Devourer biomatter. Nobody thought it would work. The physics were barely understood, but Cooper tried it anyway because humans always tried things others thought impossible. The weapon disrupted the enemy's ability to adapt. Suddenly, the Devourers were vulnerable. The battles were fierce and costly. 3 human ships were destroyed. Thousands of crew members died fighting for a council that had rejected them years ago. But they fought anyway because innocent people needed help. Because it was the right thing to do. The Devourers, which had consumed 7 systems in a month, were driven back. Slowly at first, then faster as human tactics spread through the combined fleet. 6 months after, humanity's returned the last Devourer vessel was destroyed at the Battle of Kelvanus Prime. The same system where humanity had once been, dismissed from the Council. The irony was not lost on anyone. When the final Devourer ship exploded, the combined fleet held position in silence. Then slowly every ship began broadcasting, not victory songs, just a simple message. We remember the fallen, all of them, from every species, from every world. In the aftermath, the galaxy transformed. The restructured council held its first session under the new treaty. Every species had equal voice. No majority could oppress any minority. The Bill of Sapient Rights was ratified, protecting freedoms that many species had never imagined. 3 species that had been unhappy under the old system became enthusiastic participants in the new one. Even the Thraxians eventually admitted the changes were positive. Humanity took its place not as conquerors or saviors, but as equals. Ambassador Daniel Harper, now elderly but still sharp, attended the new council's opening session. High Chancellor Vrim, who had been re-elected in a truly democratic process, approached him. "Ambassador Harper, I owe you an apology," he said. "When you walked away 12 years ago, I thought you were prideful and foolish." Daniel smiled. "And now?" he asked. "Now I understand you were principled and wise," Vrim said. "You walked away from power being used unjustly. You showed us what we had become. And when we needed you most, you didn't gloat or demand revenge. You demanded we become better. We all became better," Daniel said. "That's the point. A rising tide lifts all boats, or in this case, all starships." Vrim's crystalline face somehow conveyed humor. "I still don't fully understand your expressions," he said. "You will," Daniel replied. "We have time to learn from each other now." And they did. Across the galaxy, a new era began. Human innovation spread not through conquest but through cooperation. Viridian philosophy blended with human creativity. Thraxian efficiency combined with human adaptability. Even the Korthax, who had been most resistant, found value in the exchange of ideas. The galaxy became richer for its diversity. Professor Gregory Hayes returned to the Viridian homeworld. Linara was waiting for him. They embraced as old friends do. Together they completed the quantum communication project they had abandoned years before. The breakthrough came from combining Viridian theory with human experimentation. Neither could have done it alone. That became the pattern. Different species working together, each bringing their strengths, each respecting the others. On Earth, 15 years after humanity's return, President Brooks addressed his people. 15 years ago, we walked away rather than submit to injustice," he said. "It was the hardest decision humanity ever made. We didn't know if we would survive. We didn't know if we would ever be part of something larger again. But we knew that freedom was worth the risk. Today, we stand not only free, but united with thousands of species in a council that respects the rights of all. We didn't win through conquest." Brooks continued. "We won by refusing to compromise our principles. That's the real human strength. Not our weapons or our ships or our technology. It's our unwillingness to accept that might makes right. Remember that always. When power tries to silence you, walk away. Build something better. And when they realize their mistake, be ready not with revenge but with a path forward. That's humanity. That's who we are. That's who we'll always be." The broadcast ended, but its message echoed across the stars. In a galaxy that had tried to cage humanity, humans had instead shown everyone the value of freedom. They had walked away quietly when threatened. They had built themselves stronger in isolation. They had returned not as conquerors but as teachers. And in doing so, they had saved everything worth saving. Ambassador Lyron stood in his office looking at the stars. He was very old now, even by Viridian standards. Soon he would retire. But he had lived to see something remarkable. A galaxy transformed, a council that served its people instead of controlling them, species working together as true partners. He thought about the day humanity walked away. How terrified he had been. How certain that disaster would follow. He had been right to be concerned, but wrong about the nature of the disaster. The disaster wasn't humanity leaving. The disaster was the system that made them want to leave. The disaster was a council that feared creativity and punished independence, that tried to make everyone the same. Humanity's departure had been a gift, even though nobody recognized it at the time. A chance to look in the mirror and see what they had become. Lisa Bennett retired from military service and opened an academy. She trained officers from dozens of species in the tactics that had defeated the Devourers. But more than tactics, she taught them to think creatively, to question assumptions, to try the impossible. Her students came from worlds across the galaxy. They learned that there was no single right way to solve problems. That diversity of thought was strength, not weakness. Dr. Paul Martinez continued his research, collaborating with scientists from hundreds of species. The breakthroughs came faster than ever. Medical treatments that saved billions. Energy systems that powered whole civilizations. Transportation methods that connected distant worlds. Every discovery built on the one before. every species contributing something unique. This was what the galaxy could be when fear didn't hold it back. On a small colony world, a young human child asked her teacher why humans had left the council all those years ago. The teacher thought carefully about how to explain. Because sometimes, she said, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from something wrong. Even if it's scary. Even if you don't know what comes next. Your ancestors chose freedom over comfort. They chose principles over acceptance. And because they did, everyone else learned to choose those things too. The galaxy turned. Stars were born and died. Civilizations rose and fell. But the lesson remained. Power without freedom becomes tyranny. Unity without diversity becomes oppression. And sometimes the only way to save something is to walk away from it and give it a chance to become better. Humanity had walked away quietly. And in that quiet departure, they had spoken louder than any weapon ever could. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to be truly free. And that freedom, like all the best things, was meant to be shared.